If there's one thing that this NBA playoffs has proven to me, it's that you need good role players to supply production alongside your star players. And some of these role players came at a cheap cost as well. Take a look at, for example, Seth Curry for the Dallas Mavericks. Seth, for the production, shooting, and even his playmaking ability that he brought for the Mavericks, especially in the playoffs, is only making $8 million. That's what I call a bang for your buck. As a result, when looking into the upcoming 2020 free agency, I believe that there are going to be three types of these bang for your buck players who will probably be making less than $10 million a year, but will most likely outproduce that contract that they will sign. So without further ado, the first player that is going to be a contract steal for whichever team that he signs with will be Langston Galloway. Now Galloway, if being looked from the viewpoint of an average basketball fan, may not seem anything that special. He's undersized for being a guard at 6'1", he really can't handle the ball that well, and has bounced around the league with multiple teams. I remember a lot of people were criticizing the Pistons when they signed him to a 3-year, $21 million contract back in the 2017 offseason. After signing that contract, Langston wouldn't be used in a lot of the Pistons games, and it wasn't because he sustained an injury or anything like that, it was actually because of a coach's decision. However, ever since being under the coaching of Dwayne Casey, especially this past season, Langston has been able to show his true talent and skill. For the entirety of his career, Langston has always been able to maintain being a good 3-point shooter. The worst that he has ever shot from 3 came in his sophomore year in the NBA, where he shot 34.4% from 3 on around 3 attempts per game. But Langston has been able to improve his jumper to the point where, ironically as well, this past season he shot the best in his career with a 39.9% 3-point field goal percentage on 5 attempts per game as well. But the part that really separates Langston from probably any other free agent besides maybe a couple here and there is just how good of a defender Langston is. I know the stats may not pop out for him. It doesn't help that Langston for his career has never averaged more than a steal per game. But he is such an underrated defender for the amount that he'd cost. There hasn't been many plays where Langston is being blown by on the defensive end. He hustles, and more than anything, considering how players such as Patrick Beverley are making $15 million per year that play really similar to each other, being able to sign Langston for around $5 to $9 million would be a bargain. The second player that will outproduce the contract that they will sign, Derrick Jones Jr. Now Derrick hasn't been used that much at all during the postseason, but I just want to keep this in mind, it's honestly been out of his hand. After suffering what seemed to be a serious injury, he was able to come back relatively early to the point where he'd be able to play in the playoffs. But the main issue is that Coach Spoelstra has already shortened the leash on the players that he's using off the bench. So any type of bad play that Jones may have shown, he won't be granted another chance. Because, after all, it's the playoffs, win or go home. But I will say this, if the Heat don't re-sign him, it's a major mistake. Derrick Jones Jr. is a classic example of a player who doesn't exactly do one thing well or one thing that he's able to specialize in. But because of the length and athleticism that he poses, he is a great defender. Whether the Heat would be running a zone or they're running man defense, Derrick Jones Jr. was able to prove that he's more than just a dunk contest highlight tape. At what point in the regular season, Jones was ranked in the 89th percentile for blocks and the 92nd percentile in steals. In other words, he's able to get more blocks and steals than 89 and 92% of players in the league. So why is Jones in this video if he's such a good defensive asset? This is largely due to how Jones isn't able to shoot one bit. For the regular season, Jones shot 28% from 3 on a little over 2 attempts per game. And in the marginal amount of playoff minutes that he's been able to get, it's 33% but only on 1 attempt per game. Jones, bearing an incredible offseason, most likely won't become a shooter anytime soon. But any team paying him around $4 to $7 million will get a steal in him because of the versatility that he will provide on the defensive end. The final player that NBA teams should want to sign on a cheap contract, Nerlens Noel. I can't lie, I feel sort of bad for Noel because of how he turned down that massive contract offer from the Mavs a couple of years back. But seeing how fast the NBA has changed for the big man, it's sort of understandable why he'd be in a video like this. With this being said though, Noel brings two elements with his playstyle that every NBA team badly needs: being able to rebound and being able to get blocks on the defensive end. For his career, Noel is averaging 1.4 blocks and 1.3 steals per game on a little over 20 minutes per game. Noel doesn't exactly do anything special because of how limited his game is, but a signing like Nerlens Noel can be really similar to a player like JaVale McGee. Both of these bigs are athletic big men who can provide key energetic minutes off the bench, but at the same time they can both be liabilities due to their inability to shoot the ball and the problems that they may pose in being able to guard outside from the paint. Even with his liabilities, being able to sign Noel for around $2 to $4 million will be a great deal for whichever team is able to sign him. Let me know what you guys think. Until next time, peace.